Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ahead of the Curve, also associated with Framework. Today, I would like to introduce my guest, Gil. Gil, welcome to the show.
Hello, Geoffrey. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't help but to notice all the amazing work that you guys have been doing recently at Intus.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah,
It's
it's been
a
really cool
long
stuff.
path, and thank you.
So, Gil, could you give us a little bit of a background? Actually, you know what? We should start with where you are right now, where you guys are, where you're located.
We are located in Mexico City, so this amazing city, big city. Is we are like um, grown in the city all my life. So yeah,
So, native to Mexico, native to
native,
Mexico
yeah,
City.
yes,
Always been home.
yes, yes. I lived for a while in the Caribbean, but I'm like a city rat. I'm
Yeah,
gonna be like, I love the city and the
you're an urbanite. You love the urban the
yeah.
urban city life.
Yes, yes.
So, Gil, can you give us a little bit of a background of yourself and where you started and kind of how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, multimedia artist and then became a director. I'm born here in Mexico City, and my work is focused in interactive and immersive installations.
So what
So
so what got you there? Like, how did you decide that you wanted to be an interactive artist?
So I actually study audiovisual communication. So I was first like doing post production, and I was working on the news. That's I learned like being like a military guy, like in the news, like wake up 4 o'clock in the morning and starting making post production for the TV news. But a friend of mine went to study in Europe. Don't remember the university, but I think in Spain. And he came back for vacation, and he showed me like 10 years ago or more, 12 years ago, something like that. I see a multi-touch screen, right? So I was like, for first time I see a multi-touch screen, I was, oh my God, I'm gonna do this for a living. I don't know how to do it, but
But I got
I
to
am
figure it out.
sure. Yeah, and actually we built our own first multi-touch screen back in the days, like 12 years ago when the first iPhone came up. And we built a multi-touch screen with EER sensors and projection. And we made our first application with JavaScript and something like that. So yeah, from there I was very into interactive media and technology.
That's a cool story. I could just imagine what your face looked like the very first time you were able to witness a touch screen or a digital device that you could interact with.
Yeah, exactly. It was like magic, right? I always like to think that technology also is like a magical or like something like that. So when you touch something and then appears cool graphics, I was very impressed at the first time. So
So from the graphics side, like how did that all kind of come together? What kind of sparked your interest in generative graphics and generative kind of interactive design?
yeah, I actually always love art, and I have a artistic background, and I study a lot of different history of art and stuff. And then I came to processing. My first project was with processing, and at some point I discovered Touch Designer too, and then I love it. I was like, for me, it was like game changing media, right? Because now you can do stuff in real time and avoid rendering. So was mind blowing for me too, because it's more creative, right? It's just not to wait for a render. It's just like doing
Yeah.
stuff and see things happening in real time. So I get engaged to that so very quickly in the game.
So would you say you kind of started like was Touch Designer kind of the first tools that really got you into the
But the
entered you
first
into
one
the
was
realm of interactive design, or was it more manual and
I
hard
start more
coding?
with processing, and then 4B. I start with both of them, processing a little bit of coding, and then I find, because I'm not a coder, so I find it kind of hard. And then I find 4B. I start with 4B a little bit, and then I get to Touch Designer, and I really hook up on Touch from then. I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So kind of as things were really starting to get into the market and interactive media and real-time art was starting to become more popular.
Yeah.
I think, around that time, and it's been going crazy ever since. Things have been evolving
Yeah.
at such a rapid pace.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Laura. Laura says processing is such a great tool for those who
Yeah,
are
it is.
coders. So have you been finding yourself exploring different media and different outlets lately? Have you been trying out different tools? Like what is kind of the creative process that you guys go through right now in your studio?
I mean, we get. I mean, for the process, we also like a lot to be involved in the conceptual part of it, like the creative part of it, because at some point you realize that maybe these are great tools, but at the end it's just the medium. It's like at some point you get stuck that these are looking the same, or the tool. I mean, it's endless the possibilities, but I think that creativity and how you use the media is the final output of the work. So we spend a lot of time in like pre-production, like thinking how things gonna look and what is the meaning of the show, right? We have like two departments or in Intus. We have like the commercial side of it, and we of course make commercial projects, and we get a brief, and then from there we create the project, or more artistic project. But in the artistic projects, we really like to dive into the concepts, on the vision. What is the meaning of the lighting? What is the meaning of the different things? And technology, I think, have to be that, because sometimes technology is so ahead of us. It's like you are learning now another tool, and then it's an upgrade, and now it's another upgrade, and now it's another 10 different softwares.
And here's the
And
feature for this, and here's the new feature for this. Now I can do this. Now I can do that.
exactly, and a lot of companies doing this. So yeah, you can go like searching the rabbit and like trying to get it, but at the end, I think that you have to stay with the meaning that you want to share, right? Like, what is the meaning of all of this?
Your
The
meaning being
lighting, the
your objective.
color, exactly. What is the meaning on the color? What is the meaning on the lighting? I mean, what is the purpose of doing this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I know personally, I've been down those creative rabbit holes myself where I've had a loose kind of objective, like kind of an idea in my head of what I wanted, but I wasn't 100% sure. My wife can attest to this. I would sit in Notch for like days trying new things, and I would come up with something. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, but I want to do, a little bit more on this side of things. So I would scrap everything and start again, and I would just keep on coming up with things. And then after a while, I became uncertain, because I'd come up with all these different designs and these different concepts. And I'm like, okay, well, I lost track of really what my main objective was. So I think in having a really good solidified plan of what you want to achieve is a really good idea,
Yeah, yeah,
especially
it's happening to me the
with
same.
interactive media.
Yeah, sometimes you can stay like I don't know, you have a week working on something, and you spending like 12 hours a day like trying to solve the thing, and suddenly in 1 hour you solve everything. So it's like
Yeah, it's amazing how some of those things come together, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So, I think all great things usually always come out of having a team. So, could you tell us a little bit about your team that you have that support you at Intus? And
Yeah, I actually have a great team. I love my team because we have like a multidisciplinary team. We have, of course, like 3D artists, and also programmers, and graphic designers, and I mean, we tried also architects, so industrial designers. So we try to look at things. I really love that metaphor or that picture that says that like the story. I think is from the Buddhism that is an elephant, white elephant, and people is looking from different parts of the elephant, and you are describing a part, and you say like truth is this way, and is this another way. But when you see the same project or the same thing from all the perspective, you have a better understanding of the project. So I try to do that, because if you are just a programmer, maybe you are seeing things in certain way that the designers is looking in different perspective, right? So when we put together all the perspective, we have a better understanding, and I think we can have a better output on the project if we have this multidisciplinary field of view on the projects.
Yeah, that's yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know from, again, just speaking from my experiences, that uh, having those views and having the input from these different people that have different backgrounds is just invaluable, for the opinions on how things are. Because you're right, you kind of get stuck in your own ways of looking at things and your own views, and a lot of that's based on just so many things from your own past, psychologically, your upbringing, your education, your travels, your experiences. It kind of all plays into the way that you look at the world and the way that you treat different things. I have always believed that people, there might be a general underlying message, when you go and experience something as a person, especially something that's been curated for a certain purpose, but we still all interpret it differently, just because of the way that we are as humans. And I think that whole idea of collaborating, especially from a creative way, and collaborating on these different projects, is absolutely essential for not only being successful, but also, being able to have a very fulfilling project, an installation. So I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, as you say, that sometimes your perspective is just spotting your past, and maybe it's like this distorting your view of everything. So yeah, I like that exercise of seeing stuff for different point of views, and works a lot for me in different projects. So
Yeah, I know for me, even working from, a software perspective, and now working on developing products, I like to have input from a whole bunch of people, everybody. And it doesn't matter who they are or what they do, but if they can come back with some sort of input, it's so helpful, because you just
yeah,
get,
and actually
like, oh
sometimes
yeah,
the
cool, I never even thought about it that way, and I never really looked at it that way. So having that
yeah,
input.
and it's funny that sometimes the people that you don't expect to have the good output. I mean, like maybe I don't know, like the accountant or some guy that it have very different perspective of the problem, maybe that you may
Mhm.
solve. Sometimes doesn't give you the answer, but give you a hint where you can follow. And I don't know. I try to do that exercise, or also for myself, like trying to think in a different perspective, or a different, yeah, different perspective of the things. I mean, also in emotions, and because sometimes projects are also like that. I think
Yeah.
also it's challenging that you are in an install or in a gig, and everything is so stressed and full of energy, and maybe you are in the rush, and then you are not like, you don't have the right perspective, and we are playing with technology, right? So technology also can fail. It's like it's a lot of stuff that can go wrong, right? So
There's an immense amount of things that can go wrong.
exactly. So you have to stay focused, you have to stay like open minded to try to solve things, right?
Yep, absolutely. So speaking of things that go wrong and, things that are quite challenging, what has been one of the projects that comes to your mind that kind of really put you in the hot seat and kind of brought you out of your comfort zone, if you will?
I think I tried to all the projects to do that, but recently we made the last year, just when the pandemic started, we made a great show with Art House. We make a collaboration in the New York City venue. So
Oh, an
was
art tech house.
yes. So we made the show for the Pantone Color of the Year, and that project was very challenging because we have very tight deadline and was complicated because it's a lot of stuff going on, right? It's a huge amount of projection. It's a huge resolution. So yeah, I think that was like you think that you can do some things and then you actually made it, right? Like, okay, I have to put all my limits. Is like it's no limits, right? If you want to achieve something, you have to put your limits away and find a way to solve it, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of projects is like that. It's tight deadlines, a lot of stuff going on. Also, now with all this XR stuff, it's kind of hard too, right? Because the clusters and stuff, and yeah, I mean, technologically sometimes it's challenging for 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 the tight deadlines you may have in some projects. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. You brought on another interesting thing is, with a lot of we see a lot of trends happening, in the last year, especially since the pandemic has hit. Things shifted and changed in a lot of ways, and it made people think a lot differently in the way that they approach technology and the ways that they use technology. And you'd mentioned, basically virtual production and XR kind of really coming into the realm, of our industry, and it's really caught on. But it's definitely introduced a lot of inherent challenges and some difficulties and things like that. Have you guys been engaged in doing virtual production as well, or pushing extended reality into some of your work?
yeah,
Maybe
actually,
the
yeah,
exposure of clients and things like that, or the requests of clients being in Fortnite concert, or
yeah.
experiencing some virtual event somewhere.
Yeah, actually, we are being doing that recently. We are partnering with another company to build a XR stage, and it's been challenging. And also for me, that it's like I want, of course, the client always want a specific thing, but also in XR, I've seen a lot of the same stuff, right? Like you see a stage and you see like. I don't know, it's a lot, of course, projects that are very interesting around the internet, but also it's a lot of projects that is also like we have extended reality to create reality, right? We have extended
Hmm.
reality to create a building. So it's like, okay, I know why, because we are trapped in the pandemic and we can't go to that place. But also, my interest in that technology is how we create something that expands our reality, right? Like it's not just a building or just like a museum or just like a airport, but how we can expand it with new ideas or something that is more engaging or more yeah, like expand your reality. But yeah, it's very interesting technology. I think it's gonna stay for a long time. It's challenging too because it's a lot of companies and different hardware that you need to bring up together. But I really enjoy to start building that project. It's very interesting.
Cool. Yeah, I find extended reality, it's still quite new, and there's people that are still trying to solve a lot of the problems, from a workflow perspective,
Yeah,
and
it's kind of hard.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of interesting kind of interesting approaches that are coming into place now, and tools that are coming into place, and things like that, which is cool. Hey, Brett. So Brett's asking, what are some of your specific challenges with the Art Tech House New York project?
I mean, for example, one of them was working because we have very tight deadline. We avoid using render software like 3D rendering. So we go with, for example, with Notch, and then we have a lot of projects with Notch because it was so high resolution that was crashing all the time, right? It's like it's not solved how to solve it.
Here, I
So
thought I'd bring up a little visual reference for those of you who wanted to take a look at some of the imagery.
yeah, thank you. So we need to like build a camera rig inside of Notch to divide those resolutions and be able to create like a puzzle and be able to actually render all the stuff for the time that we have. We also use Houdini, but a little bit less because of the framework. Also, what other challenge? I mean, was a lot of on the content, right? And create the content correctly to be seamless and to avoid all this extra processing because all these projectors are 4K, so it's
That's
huge amount of resolution.
yeah, I was gonna say that's a lot of pixels.
Yeah, a lot of pixels. So we need to solve a lot of technical stuff inside of Notch that was challenging, I think so. And also maybe yeah, I think that was the biggest challenge we I think was
Some of the content, by the way, is absolutely stunning. It's beautiful.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. We also some parts of the show was recorded. It's like we made like the same camera rig that we create for Notch to match all the walls and the floor. We create something similar but with real cameras. So we put like a rig of cameras and then we record like water stuff, liquids, and then put it in the software. So that's also was a nice, I think was a nice solution to avoid some rendering, to actually record some video and create the seamless. The
So did you do
seamless.
any compositing on the pre-recorded content, the stuff that you captured, or did you kind of frame it up and use it in its natural state?
No, we composite. Yeah, we created a rig and we composite a little bit, but not too much. Like, I mean, add some color correction and stuff like that, but try to keep it the way as we record the stuff.
So I know from past experience and visiting Art Tech House myself, back in the kind of the soft opening, they were running everything as pre-recorded video files. Was everything still kind of pre-rendered for you guys? Were you able to run anything in real time while you were there, or was it basically all pre-produced?
At the moment, yes, our show was pre-produced, and yeah, it's some plans to do it in real time, but it's so big resolution that
Yeah.
for the moment, I think it's not easy task, right?
No, definitely not. Well, yeah, definitely not. Not without a lot of cluster rendering capability and a lot of processing power
Yeah.
to make that happen and make that work. So out of curiosity, what was the production timeline that you had on creating this project?
Oh, I think we have like 4 weeks.
4 weeks. So you had
Yeah.
4 weeks from the time that you started to the time that you had to deliver?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not a lot of time at all.
Yeah.
So
And it
how
was
many,
like 30 minutes show, I think so.
30 minutes of content?
Yeah.
And how many people, out of curiosity, did you have working on the
We
project?
we was around the artists. We was like 8 people, I think so. Eight,
Okay.
around 8, maybe less.
As Laura said, ouch. Yeah, that must have been a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah, actually, yes. There's some blood in the some blood and tears.
But I would say that all good projects come from blood and tears.
Yeah, yeah, of course. If it doesn't hurt, it doesn't feel
It's so
right.
true. Yeah, I could attest with my friend AJ. AJ, hey, buddy, miss you, man. I know he's been through a lot of blood and tears on a lot of projects that he's worked on. All right, I'm just going to remove this for a second. There we go. Yeah, I thought it would be fun to kind of bring that up and maybe just look over a couple of the other projects that you had, because I find, a lot of the things that you've been working on have been so diverse. Like you've got the Art Tech House project, but in looking at the website, you've also got like some corporate projects. I saw you did a project for Porsche,
Yeah.
and you've done some kind of more kind of corporate gauged projects. So out of the disciplines and out of the work that you've been doing, what have been like some of the more? Do you have a preference on the installations and the things that you work on? Do you prefer things that are more permanently installed? Do you prefer working on things that have tighter deadlines and are temporary? Like, do you guys have a preference on the types of projects that you work on? And do you also kind of pick and choose the projects that you work on as well?
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard to say. I love my job because as you say, is so diverse, and I also love to research new things. It's like, okay, maybe this time is projection, but now it's a lot of LEDs, and now it's sensors, and now it's so I like the diversity. I mean, if I get stuck in the same thing, maybe I'm not going to be so active. I don't know. I really enjoy to have different stuff, and commercial
Different types.
projects also. I enjoy them too. I love to also to learn how different companies works, and maybe it's as you mentioned, the Porsche project is also was like they ask us for main because we are like focused on multimedia, right? But they was like, okay, why do you made the whole event? It's like all the production, like do
We want you to
everything.
do everything.
Yeah, why not? And I was like, okay, let's try that. And what's great because we focus on the multimedia stuff, and of course because we are very we like to check all the details on everything. We made a good production, like choose a good venue, choose like I mean was everything, like even the food and the drinks, right? But we was like, okay, let's choose the cool drinks for the for people here, so they can enjoy the show and get the nice drinks for the show, right? So I enjoyed that part too, but I prefer the artistic projects, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
everything that has to be with art is that's why I would love to work with Arctic House and other projects we made for example for Mutec here in Mexico. I love that because it's more creative and we can do more stuff, and yeah, I think I enjoy more artistic projects.
Cool. Yeah, Laura just brought up an interesting question, and she's asking, what advice do you have for students who want to get into the field?
Good question. I think that for students, I will say that you need a lot of passion, and also you need to get out of the box and get out of your comfort zone, right? It's like this job is hard. Sometimes, for example, I have a friend, right? Like he's a doctor, and he's like, "Oh, I don't sleep. Like it's very hard job." And sometimes, or work because it's entertainment or it's like that. They think that you are like very relaxed in your house, like reading books and being creative and that stuff, but then you realize that no, you don't sleep. You are like working on weekends, and it's a hard job actually.
Yeah, it is a hard job. It is a very hard job, and I think in this field, I think you're right. You need to have very good passion and a very hard drive, to really want to be in this industry. I've seen a lot of people kind of come and go for sure, and some. I think you've touched on a really good point that there. I always like to look at it as like being back in school when you've got all these different programs and you first get to choose the different courses that you might want to take, and you look at something like art class and you're like, oh, I'm going to take art class because it's going to be so easy, and then and then you get into art class and you start to learn what art is, and you start to learn like the commitment and the passion, and you learn all of the technique and all of the different things that go into creating art. But you don't think about it when you think about it at first. You're like, oh, art, that's super easy. And I'm wondering if there's also that perception within our fields and industry as well. When somebody looks at it and goes, oh, multimedia design and interactive design, nothing to it. Take a camera, hook it up to my computer, make some cool stuff. It's fine.
That's so true. It's like when I read about like different artworks, like so classical artworks, you see that and it's like, oh, beautiful. But when you actually read how it was done, it's crazy. It's like 5 years doing the same thing during 15 hours a day, and the detail and the detail. So yeah, it's kind of a
Yeah,
surgery process, like very detailed to go into.
absolutely. Uh, I was just gonna kind of put in my own little 2 cents there into Laura's question too. There's a lot of amazing training programs that are out there. We were talking about Elber earlier,
Mm.
out of Toronto, that does a lot of amazing tutorials and lessons in Touch Designer. There's a lot of great assets that are available to people. I would say that for a student getting into the field, take a look at some of these products, look at some of the tutorial videos on how things work. Go to events and go to installations and go to festivals as well. And there's a lot of great art festivals and things that are happening all around the world. And the art communities are very open. There's a lot of great Facebook groups and social media groups that are available for people just to get exposure, and to see what kind of goes into it, and communicate with artists and communicate with creative people. We're all people at heart. I think most people are very open in talking about their own passion and what they've kind of gone through to get to where they are. And I think that would be like a really good resource for people looking to get into the field. Do some research.
Yeah, that's great advice. And yeah, the Elbur's tutorials are great. Also, Matthew Reagan have amazing
Oh yeah,
resources. And then you can like actually learn everything, right? Like on the internet. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you, kind of going into interactive design and interactive media. I was just thinking about all these different resources that are coming into place, and all these different tools that are becoming available, and features. Is there anything that's really made you excited over the course of the last year? Are there things that kind of stick out more than others? Are there things that you want to explore more and play with more?
mhm.
What is exciting you these days? What's kind of like really kind of driven you?
Oh, good question. I mean, yeah, because if you think about it, it's like all of these technologies been around for a long time, right? It's like I don't know, projection mapping, for example, is almost decades that it's been along with us, right? It's like, or maybe I don't know, a few years was VR the sensation, right? And now VR is so common, or it's everywhere. I think that what excites me most is to put together different technologies. maybe not just one. So like how we can bring new ideas and new possibilities, bringing together a lot of different technologies. I think that's what excites me these days most. It's like how we can integrate different stuff.
Yeah, I've been really keen on this a lot of the same thing. You know, looking at the way that these different tools work together, and looking at how to harness the power of each of these different tools, like to their utmost abilities. And I think that that whole creating that synergy, or the omniverse, as NVIDIA calls it, you know, of being able to have a whole bunch of these different technologies and these different tools kind of intertwined and talking together, you know, it kind of expands the creative tool sets to a lot of artists and a lot of creative producers on the capabilities of what they can do. The one thing that I've also been really keen on that I think is really neat to see is, you know, projection. You mentioned projection mapping being around for decades, and it has been, but some of the cool things now with like making projection mapping more interactive and creating like kiosks where people can come up and, you know, interact with a kiosk and have the changes that they do, you know,
Mm.
happen on these buildings and these great big things, and engaging people more and bringing people kind of more into that experience and into that, you know, into that, yeah, into the experience of being part of an event and being part of an installation.
And also, I think machine learning is quite interesting too. It's a lot of stuff that is gonna happen. So we are like just starting with that, right? It's a lot of future that now is integrating into the tools we use usually like Notch, the new NVIDIA, or in Touch Designer, the new NVIDIA stuff that, for example, I get impressed with that tool that is the NVIDIA remove background that now it's like a Kinect with just like a webcam.
Yep.
So it's gonna be like crazy amount of tools that is gonna be built with machine learning, right? It's gonna be like interesting to see what happens. I also love the work of Memo Acton, and the rest recently work he shared is impressive. It's gonna be like crazy stuff in the machine learning field too.
So what is your feel on that, like coming into the digital art and digital media world? What is your feel on, you know, using machine learning to create art?
We used some of that in installation we made for Mutech. Was like a real time portrait. Was like a self portrait. So you was like seeing a frame, and you can see yourself what made of different artwork that was made on machine learning. That was interesting, and I want to research more on that. I'm very interested in how things, new stuff can create it to that, but also I think that is a lot of repetition. Like for example, the GAN stuff that
Hmm.
you see it for the first time, and then it's like a lot of the same thing. So how we use that tool to really create something, as I say in the beginning, something that is meaningful, or something that actually had a storyline, or a concept that makes you think about it. I very I'm very into the idea of also technology have to make a positive impact too, right? Because
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
so how we can bring all those technology to bring that, and also after this pandemic is something that we need to care about, how we use this tool, yes, for entertaining, but also how we can make a positive impact in the people is around us, or the people that follow us, or work, right?
I think that a lot of it though becomes complementary to each other. You know, like the tools are created, but it's the artists and the users that are going to create meaningful and impactful things with it. And they kind of run hand in hand and have to complement each other in moving forward. Like my current role and my current job is to try and make your life easier. Like
Mhm.
creating tools and creating technologies and
Thank you for that, man.
molding things to make creative lives easier to do. Bringing these things together. So that's part of the job that I love is looking at all these different things and trying to bring them together. But I'm also trying to look at it from a creative perspective. Like if I'm creating something, then how could I go about balancing it, and how can I go about giving somebody the richest feature set possible that is not going to be overly complicated and is going to like make somebody rip their hair out when they use something.
Yes.
Somebody like actually Christy just brought up a point a minute earlier saying that the illusion of simplicity in art, I believe that has been a never-ending battle since the beginning of time. And there's a lot to be said about that quote, like I'll bring it up here. I think that you can boil everything back down into the simplicity of it all. As you mentioned earlier in the interview about creating, these really amazing interactive experiences, you're boiling it down to the story and you're boiling it down to the means, and you're creating those different steps, kind of a storyboard of what you want to ultimately achieve. And it kind of all refines itself and breaks itself back down to like the most simplistic, steps on how to get from point A to point B. And I think that, and this is again up for opinion, I think that has uh, I think that some people overcomplicate things. As you mentioned, you can go down the rabbit hole very easily, and some things just get too complicated. They get too overlooked, and they find themselves kind of swaying away from what the original purpose of the media or the art or the project is.
Yeah, it's true. It is true. And yeah, it's very interesting that quote about the illusion of simplicity. I love, for example, to study like Carl Jung or Mircea Eliade or Rudolf Steiner, this kind of literature that or even I found recently an artist, one of the first abstract artists was actually a woman, that is Hilma Klint. It's a Swedish artist, and
Huh.
it's amazing. She is amazing, and you see her artwork, and you see that it's very simple, but has a lot of meaning. It's like symbols or stuff that go actually to your unconsciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and when you are seeing that, it's like so profound, but also so simple. So that's sometimes for me the key or something that I try to follow. So how you can be very meaningful with a few lines or a few colors, but putting them together makes something that I don't know is symbolic or give you something for your unconsciousness that gives you meaning or gives you impact or makes memorable that moment for you, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a good music composer. It's creating music from your heart and your soul, and kind of abstracts of all kinds of different things, but having that way to put it all together, bring it all back together, and creating something very meaningful um, with music and sound, which I think
Mhm.
is just a huge impact. It would be, before we close up, actually, it would be really interesting just to touch on that for a minute, and ask you about how audio impacts your installations, and um, how audio kind of plays the role inside of
Oh,
your art.
yeah, I say to myself that I'm like a frustrated musician because I started with audio. My first steps was like making some beats in Reason and Ableton and stuff, and then I go into video. But I think somehow audio is something I don't know is higher or I don't know how to say, but gets you something in your body that, yes, visuals are cool, but I think audio is in another level, right? It's like you can see it. I mean, it's something that is more abstract at some point, but it's connected to something that is very important for human beings. So yeah, I put a lot of interest in audio in my installations, and also like sometimes I don't know how to say that, but sometimes if the audio is good, it's gonna be like great show, right? It's like if the visuals are with very cool audio, I mean the show is gonna be very memorable. I don't know. It's like something I have in mind always. Like
Yeah,
good audio is the
it's so true because I'm gonna get like slain for saying this, but whenever I've gone to a concert, to go and see a musician, I've always wanted to go and see the musician and hear their music. And I find that things now have gone to like another extreme, where now you go to a concert and there's huge visuals, like you're wrapped in visuals everywhere.
yeah.
And you don't see the musicians very much. Like they've created all these huge, amazing visuals that support their music, but you don't really, get to see them performing. And sometimes I feel that it could take away from the actual experience, like it could take away from the music, even of why you're there. And it's just finding that balance, because I think you're right. Like audio definitely, I think, brings us to a different level. We relate to it in different ways, but you kind of need to have one and the other, right? You kind of have to, we also, I think, get impacted emotionally very much visually by experiencing those experiences. But I remember seeing, I can't remember who did this, but they created a bunch of like shorts with these different experiences, like very sentimental experiences, but put no audio behind them. So you'd watch them with no audio at all. And then they would replay the same shorts, but adding the audio to the visuals. And they were monitoring like people's emotions on how they were impacted from the time that they would watch it without audio and with audio. And it was just amazing to see the difference in the ways that people react when you start to add audio to a visual moment.
Yeah, imagine like these like classical moments of Kubrick movies, like Odyssey, Space Odyssey, without the music, without the audio, and the spaceship like doing this without the music. It's not so impactful, so memorable. I think that scenes is like sometimes they just put the audio and you remember that scene of the picture, right? It's like,
yeah, absolutely. Well, Gil, I think we've hit our time. I really appreciate you being a guest on the show. It's been wonderful having you on with me today. For those of you who want to get in touch with Gil and see more of his work and his team's work, please reach out to him at intus.tv. You can also reach him directly at his email address, gil@intus.tv. And I'm sure he would be more than happy to hear from you guys. And if you have any more questions you want to relay back to him. Also, we do have an archive of our work at Framework at the community. So it's /ahead of the curve. And thank you, Laura, so much for connecting us together and forming the community where we can all come together and where we can have all the material shared. It's really awesome. And so, Gil, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, guys. It's been an amazing experience, an amazing run. And as I say every week, everyone, stay ahead of the curve. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thanks so much.